Thank you for joining. Again, I had an interruption, a major interruption in the morning when I was trying to finish up this particular discussion. Now let's go straight to what I was trying to bring to your mind in the morning. I was giving you an analogy on the issue of the Ogomowai, the one the British called about women's rights. You know, I was giving you a narrative about it. But before I go on in finishing it up right now, I want to bring your mind to something very, very dangerous that is playing out right now. Aside what Nigeria has done to us, making us, you know, making some of you who are confused to keep supporting the criminals who claim to be fighting for freedom. And aside so many things that Nigeria has done to us, there's a dangerous trend that is happening or taking place right now. And that trend is the degrading and depreciating, relationship between the Yorubas and the Igbos right now. Very, very dangerous. A time bomb, already, in the process of exploding. It is very, very, very dangerous trend that is taking place now. And I would have tell you that this would not have happened if each nation had been on their own. If the Yoruba nation had been on their own, the Igbos have been on their own, and other nations have been on their own. It wouldn't happen this way. So you see that the disadvantage of being in Nigeria outweighs the advantages. And in fact, there is no advantage of being in Nigeria unless if there had been an initial agreement to be together. This is a very dangerous trend. I'm going to be treating this tomorrow, hopefully tomorrow morning. I'm going to be talking about that on its own so that I can really talk very much about it. And also, I'm going to also make a particular special broadcast on the strategy being adopted by Nigeria, using some key people to sell or to market Nigeria to those who have been talking about freedom. All they have done is keep Martin Namdekano away and then begin to use people within us to market both those who are talking about freedom, those who are not talking about freedom. They use people's specialties. People like Reno Mokri, his own specialty. He has been there trying to advise people, trying to coach people, and all of that. They see him as a very useful instrument to market Nigeria, and that he is doing very successfully to those who are gullible and those who want to allow themselves to be deceived and manipulated. I will assure you that we're going to do with that, whether on Monday or Sunday or so. But tomorrow we're going to be talking about the relationship that is going very bad between between Yorubas and Igbos. And of course, that there had never been a cordial relationship with the Fulanis and Hausas and some other people. There has always been this tension, or this tension, not these anyways, this tension, between Igbos and one tribe also. Something happens within Nigeria that keeps the people distracted. And then those Nigerian marketers will keep telling you, we can be one, we can unite it. And the confusion is so massive. And we're going to be talking about that tomorrow. Hopefully, by God's grace. Tomorrow is Sunday. We're going to do that. This is BIAFRA Global Network. My name is Kelechi Ambrose. This is the 19th day. It's Friday, 19th day, January 2024. And it is 5 p.m. where I am. I know in Biafra land it is 6 p.m. right now. And for wherever you are, I don't know your time, but I say enjoy the day and compliments of the day to you, whether night or day, compliments of the day or the night to you. Thank you for joining in. Please, as you join in, like this broadcast, share on all your social media platforms, and also get people to watch and listen. We'll continue to preach the truth, whether anybody's watching or not, whether anybody thinks that we're not making impact or not. We keep making impact, and the messages will remain on social media. And the time will come when people would go back to them and listen to them and say, if we had known, we would have listened. And those who are on the path of the truth will say, okay, this has justified the truth we were holding on to, and we are happy that we remained on the path of truth for the sake of our freedom. And of course, as support to Mazen and Kano, and he stood for. Now, I was telling you the story of the Ogomo wine, and I brought to your notice Wanyeroa, who was abused by, Emiroa, who is the servant to one of the, warrant chiefs for the colonial masters. Our people have always positioned themselves, some people have always positioned themselves right from time, even before, and the promises the colonial masters give to so many people, to get them to, do their bidding and to carry out, the activity that would be necessary to enhance and sustain the colonial program on the people. They could not stop the, they could not stop the people, but they needed the people to stop themselves, and so they choose. Has this, the human nature has this side that is selfish, and if you don't watch it, you will become to. If you don't watch it, you become a danger to your. Everybody has, every created thing has tendency of greed, including animals and all of that. If you watch chickens, you see this one takes food, he wants to take it away from the other one. I mean, he cannot finish it, but he doesn't want the other one to join him. Different animals, they always operate greed, but God gives us the ability to reason so that we'll be able to, set a standard. How greedy we greed. So we have a control mechanism. Mind. Animals operate with soul that has the mind, the ability to reason, and all of this. So everything that has to do with greed, we have the power to control it. If we lose control, if we don't have self-control, that is when we begin to carry out evil and crime and vices that contradict or contravenes reasonable existence and also affect other people. That's why Jesus had to say that whatever you don't want to be done to you, don't do to others. Whatever you want others to do to you, do you also to them. Do to them also. That's what he was saying. This is very, very important for us to understand. Now, Wanyeroa was the one abused when the colonial masters had to set, the tax, program to affect the women this time around to create or to cause economic strangulation. That is what the slave masters do. They want to put you in a situation where you will be a beggar. Always you are seeking to be helped, and then they'll be throwing the crumbs to you, and you'll be jumping and jubilating and happy that you have crumbs. That is one of the basic tools of sustaining slavery. Today we have it all over Africa. You see how the people are living in penury. Majority of the people are poor, and they keep fighting to survive. And they don't have the time. They don't have the will. Who would be thinking of to feed and then thinking of fighting? Nobody. You want to feed, and tomorrow again you want to feed. The next day you want to feed, and every day you're thinking of feeding. You want to take care of your children. You want to take care of, everything around you. You're afraid of the future because you don't know how you're going to survive the future. And basically, you want to do everything, and you keep thinking about the future. You keep working hard, and you are only helping the colonial masters to sustain their control over you. That is one of the weapons, and that was why during the war against Biafra nation, the genocidal war against Biafra, what they did was the economic strangulation, kept the people blockade, land, air, and sea. No food comes in, nothing comes in. The people were starving, things were going wrong, and this has been the weapon of the slave masters to keep the people in that situation. And that was what happened to the women, as at that time the economic strangulation came via tax, and the colonial masters began to tax the women, and the women saw the danger ahead. Remember, at this time they had been stopped from participating in governance and being part of active governance and all of that, being part of the making decisions and decision making and all of that. But you know that originally we have this program, we have this platform, we have this template, we have this standard and strategy, which of course the women were part of. They had major voice in the administrative, in the operational, and in every sphere of our nation as a people, as the Igbo race and all of that. The women were very strong, they were very powerful. But you see what happened when the colonial masters came, they knew that they were going to weaken the system and keep the people continually subjugated if they weaken the role of the women or cut them off from that. They knew that the women were significant. Women can be very significant in what you do, in what anybody does and all of that. And so they knew the role of the women in the system that we operated, the Republican system we operated before the colonial masters came in and began to control us between 1861 and to 1914, when they now made colonies. They made us colony and all of that. Now, they knew the role of the women. The women were a powerful tool in sustaining and building and growing the structure of the Igbo race. They were very powerful. The women were very, very powerful. And so the colonial masters came, and in order to destroy what was already on ground, to be able to control the system very well, they knew that they have to exit the women, take them away from the narrative, from the equation, from the strategy and all of that, and isolate them, and then utilize the men. They knew the men were vulnerable. The men were easily manipulated, deceived, and used against the structure. The men had always been at the forefront of betrayal, in the system. And so they discovered that it was better to get the men. And of course, we operated the elective style of leadership, where leaders were elected to lead in communities and all of that. But when they came in, they now brought the indirect rule, where they began to appoint chiefs. So rather than having people elected by the people or selected by people to rule and to govern or to be in charge of programs, administrative programs and other things, men and women working together, they now isolated the women and they now began to impose men. These men are men, they have promised things, they have told them they're going to educate them, they're going to give them wealth, they gave them so much promises, gave them. And it's just like what the Fulanis are doing now in the Nigeria contraption. The Fulanis have been promised and given the opportunity to steal as much as they can steal. That was the same way the warranties were told, you can take whatever, but just bring out, this is what you're going to bring to us. So you have the opportunity to do it in a way you can steal as much as you want to steal, but we have this share, you bring this share to us. That is what is happening with the Fulanis. They have amassed so much wealth, and because they are there helping the British to control, the British also don't mind that. They don't mind what they steal, as long as they continue to steal what they are stealing. It is enough to steal from and to still have more to steal. That is that is the logo. That is the narrative and the slogan. So they understood all of this stuff, and that was how it began. When they saw that it was a very useful weapon in the days of colonial control, total colonial control, when they began to apply the neo-colonialism, where they strangulate you economically, they still adopted that strategy, utilizing these people to steal and preserve the road for them to steal also. So they allowed the proxies to steal, the Fulanis and the politicians and all of these people steal, but as much as we have, you sustain and protect the avenue through which we steal. So the British Empire has an avenue to steal from us, and that avenue is being protected by these people who are guarding it for them and guiding it for them, and these people who are actually the ones, there to make sure that the British have a safe passage to to the place of the wealth and keep stealing. So it has been like that, and that was what happened. So they saw that it was a very successful weapon in those days. People like Meruba, being a tool, for the warrant chief, who was the warrant chief then, and they were going house to house doing all of that. And when they got to the woman who is a widow, 1 year old, and she said, "How can you can tax us? You can tax me. You can tell me to count my goats, count my children. You want to tax me on everything I have? No, we can't take this nonsense." Was your grandma, who is a widow, taxed? And when that question came, Emeruwa became offended, and there was exchange of words and all of that. Along the line, he held the woman at the throat, and tried to, and abused her. And the woman, of course, there was a meeting going on. She decided to go to the meeting straight from there, from the point of abuse to the meeting, and she explained everything to the women who were having a meeting. And the meeting was critically about what the situation and the plight of the women at that particular time, and the women were very, very down and out. And so when this news of 1 year old came, and she narrated the ordeal to them, and that was what they were having a meeting about: there's taxation and there's strangulation. Remember, these women, their husbands had been taxed in 1928 already, and they were already paying tax, and it was the women that was playing a major role in helping the men pay the tax, because most the economic power of the family was actually in the hands of the women. And so the women were paying. So now you're going to tax the women. It's going to be a double taxation on them. And they were holding meetings to what they need to do about this whole thing. And then here comes 1 year old coming to explain what Emerywa has done to her, the abuse and the taxing and that, that angered the women, that made them very, very angry and very, very unhappy, and they decided to do something about it. Now, the three main women who stood and decided to organize these things, very powerful. Remember, this thing happened in the local area, then under the province. Then the major women who stood with and decided to motivate other women, very powerful women, intelligent women. Three, remember 1 year old brought the story to them, and this time around, three women were going to stand strongly and see that these things were implemented. They're going to take strong action against the colonial masters and against these ones chiefs. These three women are named Ikona, Wanedia, and Mugo. These are the three women, Ikona, Wanedia, and Mugo. These are the three women who stood up and said, we must end this nonsense. And so four of them motivated other women. The Calabar province, it began a protest in Abadan, and it began to spread. It began from that local area and then began to spread. Now remember, there had been a usual practice of the women before now on how they protest against husbands that are men, or husbands that are, abusive or working against the women's interest. There's this program called the sit-in, where they come around to your house, to your door, and they dance around, and stay there, and they sing songs of mockery, songs that points to you and talks about your wickedness and your evil. Sometimes they destroy what you have, and that alone, the men will isolate you. The men will isolate you when that happens, because they know that you are messed up. That's why these women are coming. So when the women are coming like that, the men know why they are coming. So these have always been the usual way these women were applying, their way of trying to make their voice and be heard and all of that. And this was how it was going. But when the colonial masters saw all these things happening, they didn't understand what this means. The women were protesting. They began to protest. They went to the native courts houses. They destroyed some of the courthouses. They went to some of the houses of these men and these foreign chiefs, and started the sit-in program, and some of them had to resign. It was a major, and thousands of women began to come from every corner together, and through the motivation of Ikona, one idea, and of course Mugo, and then of course the story of 1 year old it was what prompted all of this stuff, and that major protest began. And the women sat for from that December 2000. Sorry, I said 2000. From that November, between November December 1929 to January 1929. Along the line, the colonial masters killed about over 50 women. Over 50 women were killed, but the women stood their ground. Now remember, at this point, at this time, at this period of protest, the women never had guns. They never had weapons. Remember, the colonial masters were the ones having the weapons. The normal tools, cutlasses, knives, and all this stuff like that. Now you can imagine at that point of that protest, of the tax, or to reverse, the women gave their voice. They said, you will never tax women again, and women will not be taxed, and women must be part. And that was how the colonial masters changed their strategy. They now brought the women into governance. They now started appointing the women in sensitive positions, giving them roles to play, and suspended, indefinitely, the taxing program against the women. That was how the women were able to hold forth without anybody. They didn't shoot anybody. They had no guns. They had no seven. They had nothing like that. They went with one accord, no betrayal. Everybody was part of it. Everybody agreed to it. Everybody was part of it. They all worked together to see that they had the result, and that helped. And the women were able. Sorry, I'm trying to get some light because it's getting dark here, so it's becoming somehow, and they were able to sustain this stuff, and were able to get the colonial masters to change the program, in spite of the fact that over 50 of them were killed. Yet the colonial masters couldn't stop them. The colonial masters couldn't stop these women. The women succeeded in making sure that what they stood for was granted. They made sure that they came back in governance. They were given roles to play in governance. They also made sure that the particular taxing or the tax program, the tax idea to keep them impoverished. Remember that during that period there was this economic meltdown then in the 1920s, all over the globe, based on the policies and things going around. Remember, World War I had already happened. So many things were happening. So the women knew they were not getting the things they were supposed to get. So there was so much trouble. But the women were able to, without AK-47, without anything, stop that economic strangulation. Now let's look at the lessons from what these women did to the time we are in right now. Remember, it began with one woman, 1 year old, who stood against a particular narrative or a particular warrant chief who represented the colonial masters. The women, one, if you observe how they did it, there was no betrayal among them. They were in one accord. Two, they didn't have weapons, AK-47 and all of that, to make any point. Three, they stood in spite of who was killed and in spite of whatever. They couldn't bribe them. They couldn't, stop them from doing what they have to do. The colonial masters couldn't stop these women. So because they couldn't bribe them, they couldn't stop the protest. They couldn't suppress it. So at the point when they now started killing and all of that, but the women still stood until they now reversed the whole decisions that were to be implemented. That was when the women now stopped the protest. And that was when things now changed for what they were expecting. Now, what do we draw out from this? Today we have AK-47 everywhere. We have different kinds of bombs. We have, and the internet, we have means of reaching out. We also have the ability to be together and united. But the problem here we have now is that when men are involved in things, sometimes it becomes very, very, and the seed of betrayal has been sown deep into the fabric of our system. And the women who now began to come into authority and do things began to learn the corrupt ways. The colonial masters began to, over time, use system to corrupt, make sure that the system was very, very flawed, so that the greed of the women also begin to get attracted and all of that. And that's why today you see women who are in office, political office, or whatever office, appointed to do some stuff. They have opportunity to steal, they steal, and so many things going on. And this has enabled betrayal. Now the colonial masters leave a loophole, a system. Like if you observe Nigeria, it is structured in a way that there will be a loophole for people to steal. And when you steal, they know you steal, but they don't say anything. They leave you until the time when they know that you are going to be a danger to their own. And the next administration that comes in will observe to see if you're going to be a danger to them by the things you're going to do or the activities you're going to take, or to sustain themselves in office. They now begin to probe you and begin to mess you up until you now come to join them in their own group or their own called political parties. And then you now become a saint. So they would keep putting you in a situation where you would continue to be a thief, you would continue to steal, you would continue to betray the cause of your people. And that is what has made us stay in this narrative, in spite of the fact that we have been talking about freedom for years. We have not gotten the freedom because we have people who have compromised, who are ready to betray, to sustain, and to cover up for the criminality they have been involved in. And the women are part of this now. But then you discover how that program, when that Ogun wine was successful against the colonial masters, because the women stood their ground. There was no betrayal, there was no corruption, nothing. They were clean. They came out and they didn't have anything to hide. They didn't have anything to be arrested for. They didn't have anything that they would say, if I say this now, I'll be arrested or I'll be charged and all of that. They were clean. So when we have clean hands, when those of us who have clean hands can come together now to design an economic program, at this time around, the interesting thing is we don't need to come all out to start protesting or screaming on the streets and all that. I tell you, if we apply counter economic program using our strategy of dealing with the economic strangulation against us, we are going to be free quicker and faster. I'm going to talk about this more in subsequent broadcasts. Let me tell you, one of the tactics of keeping people in slavery is through economic strangulation. If we can apply a more strategic economic program that counters their economic strangulation practice with people who have clean hands, who are ready to move with that clean hands, and who are ready to stay clean. You have not soiled your hand in their political shenanigans. You are not open to their bribery and corruption. You are determined to do the right thing, and you are ready to sacrifice for it. If we can utilize that strategy, I tell you, our freedom will come quickly. Remember, these women were clean. These women were not politicians. They had no stake in the political system. We have a majority of us today who have no stake in the political programs going on. All we do is, most of the people who have no stake, what they do today is to support ignorantly those who have stake. And that is the problem. But if we can decide to be neutral and to say we are going off this practice, we want to come together now. Those of you and those of us who are clean, whether in the political field, whether you have been part of it or not before, and now you know that you are clean, you don't have any criminal record, you know that you can come out. We are many. If we now decide to stop, instead of fooling around and messing around by supporting criminality and allowing ourselves to be controlled by people who are criminals, we decide to now form a formidable counter-economic program strategy that will help us counter the economic strangulation which they have over us today. The same way then, the economic strangulation was being applied against the people, and the women were able to riot and fight against it and war against it without using AK-47 and all of that stuff, but by their determination, by their clean hands, and by their decision to stand for the truth. If we today, majority of us are clean today because we have not soiled our hands, we're not part of their political. It's only few people that are in the political arena, and majority of the people on the below the belt are ones hailing and supporting them. They have subjugated you to the point and frustrated people to the point where you're in your frustration now. What you think about is how you are going to continue to support and suppress the news about the corruption these politicians are, carrying out. You are now the one covering for them. You are now both the religious leaders and the political leaders. You are now the one covering the corruption. You are now the ones securing them. You are now the one defending them on social media. You are now the one doing lots of things to keep them corrupt and to keep them stealing from you. The problem is that you have not seen the danger. You have not seen the danger that is around you. You are so frustrated, and you are helping them sustain the criminality against you. And these things are very, very, you can tell anyway. So the truth about it is that it's not your fault, because slavery has a way of distorting the ability to reason properly. That was why Martin and Khan always talked about the ability to reason. The women were able to get results because they were clean. 2, they had no stake in the political and design of that period. 3, they were determined and they were steadfast. If we decide now, those of us who have no political stake, we have no stake in anything politics, in the contraption or in the region we belong, and we decide we don't have anything to hide, we have not stolen from the government us before or done anything that will incriminate us, we are steadfast and decisive. We would come together now to apply a tactical economic, counter-economic program that will distort their economic strangulation against us. That is what we need. We don't, you see, the tactics of coming all out and noise and talking about fighting and we're going to kill, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. That tactics would not be very effective if we don't first apply these particular tactics I'm talking about right now. And this is the tactics that is very, very important. The tactics of building a counter program, economic program that will distort their economic strangulation against our people. Did you know that majority of our people are hungry? We know. We all know majority of our people are hungry. Majority of our people are desperately hungry and desperate to do anything to survive. Now you can imagine that majority of us now decide to, we have been in this thing for a long time. We have been in this fighting for freedom stuff. And what are we doing wrong? What are we doing wrong? I think we need to do something that would help our people first. A hungry man is an angry man. And so when a man is hungry, he will do anything to satisfy himself. That was why David says something in the book of Psalms, when he was, is it Proverbs or Psalms or so, he said something, he said, Lord, do not make me hungry. Do not make me go hungry that I don't steal. So you see, the reason why there is thieving and stealing, one, some people are collecting money, no matter what you give to them, they are possessed, they will still steal. But majority of the people would be normal and be okay when they have things to eat and when they are not insecure about what they're going to eat, about the future. When there's a secure system, a structure that's secure for them and that secures the future, they see their future from now and they know that this future is secure and bright. They would not have to go and betray any cause. They will not have to steal from anybody. They will not have to kill somebody else. They will not have to do anything wrong to survive. The majority of the people will not do something else that's criminal to survive if they see a secure future ahead. That even the Nigerian system will put people in a city to see their future so that they will keep struggling to survive and keep struggling to do anything to survive. They keep you in that position, in that situation, so that you will continue to have this guilty narrative and this guilty conscience and continue to be, if you can mean that we're stealing, so you steal, so we are all stealing. So why let us be in this system and continue to steal? That is what is happening. We stop these women, these brave women, these powerful women, 1 year old. One Nadia and Mungo took their ground and began to mobilize the women. And they got results to be in one accord because none of them had a stake in the corruption, in the governance of the colonial program. None of them had a stake in it. And they were in one accord. Nobody was thinking of betrayal because at that point in time, even the program of betrayal was not evident because they were looking for a better life. They were already frustrated with the whole narrative. And today we have to do the right thing to get ourselves on course. And I want to tell you, we need to come together rather than jumping around and shouting and screaming water here and there and jumping around from one person, one group to the other and hailing it on social media. You should just know that all those programs, all those are hailing and all those things don't work. Instead, we need to come together and form a program that will distort and destroy this economic foundation, where majority of our young people will be converted based on the fact that their lives have improved. When they are converted, they will begin to do things professionally, properly, and without emotional, control. Because when you're hungry, your emotion determines, your emotion is controlled by your hunger and your feelings. And your feelings will control your senses. So, but when you are okay, can you can balance your emotion and your reasoning and your senses. Then you can now talk better about things that concerns your freedom, things that concerns you and your future. And that is what I want us to learn in this particular broadcast today. The women were able to get the results that they desired because they were united. They had no stake in the government. They were not interested in the colonial program or the colonial arrangement. Today, we can get results if we decide not to be interested in colonial arrangements by endorsing Nigeria. We decide not to have any stake in the government and all of that. And we decide to be in one accord, not abusing ourselves in the sense of betrayal. We are going to get results. Now is the time to set up an economic program that will counter their neo-colonial program that strangulates us economically, to keep us down, to keep us hungry, to keep us always struggling and thinking of how to survive. If we do that, if we're able to do that, we're going to get a result. That is what is important. Tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about this issue going on amongst the Yorubas. Between the Yorubas and the Igbos. It's a very dangerous stuff. But I want to let you know something. It is a plan to destroy ourselves, and we must stop it. Thank you so much. Please share on all the social media platforms. I've said so many things in this particular broadcast that people must hear, and you should send it to them as an envoy of truth. You are an envoy of truth. Please share on all the social media platforms. Let the people join in and hear this truth. Please subscribe to this channel if you have not subscribed, and like this video. Like it as you watch. Please like it and then share. And also click the notification button so that whenever we come up, you can be notified. Once you subscribe, you click the button there, that thing that looks like a bell. You click it so that you can be notified. So whenever we come up online, it will tell you that we're up online, and then you can listen to what we have to say. We'll continue to speak the truth on this platform. Tomorrow, hopefully tomorrow morning, I'm going to be talking about this divide between Yorubas and Igbos right now. Very dangerous trend, a time bomb that is in process to explode, and we must be wise and deal with this with caution. Very, very important broadcast tomorrow, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys, and God bless you very good. Enjoy the rest of your day. If you're sleeping tonight or you're going to bed, have a lovely sleep and enjoy yourself. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys always. Those who are standing on the path of truth, I call you the truth family. And that's what I call you. You are the truth family. And we'll continue to do the truth and carry out the program of the truth within for when Martin and Kano will be out, hopefully by God's grace. And definitely we're going to continue what we need to do and work together to see that we receive and what we need to receive. Thank you so much for joining. Please share. I love you all. Thank you.